So now it's time to look at what we can do with envelopes. And you can see more about envelopes in the synthesizer examples, but this is a very, very basic version of it. To trigger the envelope, I need to connect it to an interaction object, and for the moment I set it up like this. I have a div called touch area, and I specified that area as the interaction area in WebAudioXML. So that means that when I touch down on that area, I will get a trigger event. I think I can call it touch or mouse or pointer. Possibly pointer is the most versatile. Yeah, versatile keyword there, because that would both refer to touch and mouse events. So let's see what we have. We have a chain here with an oscillator set to sawtooth, and that the output of the oscillator is passed into a gain node, and this is where it gets a bit interesting in this example. So the gain node, that is a Web Audio API node that has a property called gain that we could set, and we've done it in previous examples. But now inside the gain I put an envelope element, which is that is specific for WebAudioXML. That is not a part of Web Audio API. So this envelope element that creates like a sequence of value changes on the gain property on the gain node in Web Audio. So an envelope could potentially be put anywhere in the structure to control any parameter, and so it's just used in this example to act as an envelope for the gain value, which is exactly what like what do you call it? VCA, I think, voltage control amplifier envelope, VCA ENV envelope in an old analog synthesizer does, because it controls the level from you hit the key to the time after you release the key. And for now it's a very basic, simple envelope. It supports the ADSR structure. ADSR is a typical structure that we use when we program synthesizers. It stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. So it has to have 4 different values, and because I set time unit to milliseconds at the top, all the time values will be milliseconds. So the attack time, the time from when I hit or touch this area, the time from that event until the gain reaches its maximum value will be 100 milliseconds. So it will kind of ramp from 0 to 1 in 100 milliseconds. And then it will go down using 200 milliseconds to fall down to the value of 40% of the max value. And if it's not set in the envelope, the max value will be 1, which is very useful for gain nodes, because 1 is kind of the max value. But you could specify the max value, so its default is 1, but you could like use 0.5 as the maximum value, and then the envelope will just sort of work within that range. And so then it will stay on 40% of this value. Just to make it a bit easier for my head, if I write 50, it's 50% of this value, which is then 0.25. It will stay there until I release the mouse, and then it will drop down to 0 again in the time span of 200 milliseconds, and that is called the release. And this is how it sounds. I click now and released it immediately. I click and hold, I think it will show here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's make a longer attack. And the longer release. And actually this value is a bit vague somehow, and I think that relates to how web audio relates to ramping values. So it's obviously more than 2 seconds, but you can read a bit more about the relationship between that value when you fade towards 0, because it's doing something very interesting mathematically to kind of reduce the value all the time. And I think technically speaking it's sort of never hitting 0, but it's kind of moving towards 0. If we reduce that number to like a very low number, like 5, then you can hear that it will ramp up slowly and fall down quickly. Okay, we can do the opposite. So we ramp up quite quickly, fall down slowly. And then it's fading out. So this is what you can do with envelope, and of course you can put that inside a bytecode filter node's frequency parameter as well. But then you have to change the maximum value to something that matches the property value of the frequency, probably like 1000 or 10,000 or whatever you want the peak of the envelope to touch. So the max value always depends on the property you want to set, and as I said, the gain, the value of the gain property is kind of useful to work with between 0 and 1. So it's defaulting to 1 if you don't do something. If you don't set the max attribute, it will default to 1, which is the maximum value. That's it.